So I've been watching the weather for a week now and seeing the chances of rain increase by the day up here at the canyon. So when I see something like that happen, I turn my car north and I head for the canyon, because this is the kind of day that you might get every summer or two. Just one single day where temperatures are in the 60s up here on the rim. There's a chance of getting a lot of rain. Is it the safest thing to do with lightning and potential flooding? Of course not. But if you're just smart, you should be okay. And seeing the canyon when there's a storm is just absolutely magical. Sometimes you can see waterfalls falling from 1,000 feet, and it's just magic. It's just like unlike any other experience you get here. So I'm excited to do this. I'm going to go down to rim to river, South Kaibab, down to Phantom Ranch, and then back up to Bright Angel, and we'll just update everything along the way. Let's do this. I'm so pumped. That's our buddy Victor Vomit right there. Aptly named, but Victor's not for a day like today. I actually heard someone on the shuttle say how disappointed they were at the weather today. And I just wanted to say, hey guys, it's August 15th. It should be 110 degrees right now and miserable and dangerous. You have no idea what you have lucked into. But alas, here we are. No Victor Vomit today. Onward. Okay, we're just under a mile in and we just passed Aah Point, and Aah Point is actually right up there. But what I want to tell you, if there's one thing you listen to me about, or advice that I wish you would take, it's that go a little bit beyond Aah. Aah gets all the headlines. It's where everyone wants to go. It's less than a mile down the trail. But if you just come down from there and then go down this part of the trail right here and go around the corner, you're at about 1.15 miles when you get there, and you come around the corner down there, and I'm telling you, the best views that I have seen on any trail in the Grand Canyon, just around that corner. They put Aah to shame. Aah's a little bit overrated when it comes to the greatest views, in my opinion. But it's a manageable hike for most people. But if I'm telling you, just go a little bit farther, just down here, you're going to see things that you will not believe. Yeah, here it is. And for a little while here, the views just get better and better and better. Come up to this little corner right here, and I don't know if there's a better spot. I really don't. Watch, look at this. Then you get to this spot right here, which is truly my favorite spot on the entire trail. 1.12 miles from the trailhead, so 0.2 of a mile or so below Aah Point. You get down here, you've got iconic Windy Ridge right here, which is one of the coolest little stretches of trail that I've seen anywhere on the planet. There might be some just as cool, but none cooler than that. You can see down to Cedar Ridge down here, which is 1.5 miles from the trailhead. That's another fantastic day hike. But the views that you get at this section of South Kaibab, world class. I mean, as good as it can get, in my opinion. So if you can go a little bit past Aah, highly recommend it. If you go all the way down to Cedar Ridge, that's 1.5 miles, 3 miles round trip. That is a fantastic day hike, especially on a day like this when you don't have to worry about the heat. You got a lot of things to consider if you do have to worry about the heat and the sun, because you can't be down here at the dangerous times of the day, which is midday. There's no water availability anywhere on the South Kaibab Trail. You have to keep that in mind. So whatever you bring down is what you're going to have for the hike back up too, and it's a lot harder going back up than it is going down. So South Kaibab is the place to be, and just come a little bit past Aah, I'm telling you, and you will see things that you will never forget. This is Windy Ridge, which is iconic. You've probably seen photos taken from this little section of trail here, and a lot of people get intimidated by it. They think that there are big drop-offs on each side, but like it is on any of the corridor trails, South Kaibab included, if you just stay on the trail, you've got nothing to worry about. There are not huge drop-offs directly off the trail necessarily, and the trails are wide enough and easy enough to follow that you shouldn't have any issues as long as you respect the trails and stay on them. But yeah, this is Windy Ridge, and it's pretty special. Okay, 1.5 miles in, just passing Cedar Ridge, which does have pit toilets and is a fantastic spot to stop and enjoy the incredible views, and then turn around and head back to the rim, and you'll get 3 miles round trip with over 1,000 feet of vertical. So a great day hike, and one that a lot of folks can do. So highly recommend that one. In terms of the views, there's not a ton to gain after Cedar Ridge. You've seen the best of the views. Still amazing all the way down to Skeleton Point and all the way to the river, frankly. But the expansive panoramic views don't get any better after Cedar. So things get tougher if you're going to go all the way to Skeleton Point, which is 6 miles round trip, 3 miles one way. And I don't think there's a ton to gain if views is what you are after. So maybe save those miles if you're just here for the day and go to Bright Angel and do something over there or one of the other trails. But that is Cedar Ridge. Pit toilets, no drinking water. Always got to keep that in mind. No drinking water down South Kaibab. And also keep in mind, Park Service always says, down is optional, up is mandatory. Don't get yourself sucked in too far and then realize, oh no, I've got to get out of here, because it's easy to be full of adrenaline and having a great time going downhill because it's so much easier on your body. But going out is no joke, and it's hard for everyone. So you have to always keep that in the back of your mind the farther down you go. Right at 2 miles down now, just walking right alongside O'Neill Butte, which is a prominent butte that you can see from the rim and is named after Bucky O'Neill, who was a captain in Teddy Roosevelt's famous Rough Riders. So that means we are about a mile away now from Skeleton Point, which is 3 miles from the trailhead. You also have to keep in mind that while these trails are well maintained and groomed to a certain extent, and people, especially trail runners, run them every day, you have to keep in mind that they are rocky and they are rutted out by mule traffic and they are uneven. And so if you find yourself looking up and around too much as you're walking, it is so easy to turn an ankle. Ask me how I know that. Easy to do. So enjoy the beauty, but just be cautious with your steps, because you can see how much trouble you can get yourself in, and you don't want a broken ankle or a badly sprained ankle below the rim, because that's going to create a lot of trouble, not just for you, but for the people who might have to come and get you. All right, right at about 2.5 miles in, you can see O'Neill Butte now behind me as we make distance away from it. But you come up to this section, which is an unusual section on South Kaibab. It's called Mormon Flats, and it goes for about half a mile into Skeleton Point, where it's relatively flat, which you don't find on South Kaibab, especially for that long of a stretch. So it can be a bit of a respite, especially when you're coming up South Kaibab, to get a little bit of a break on Mormon Flats. But still, the rest of this part of the hike, if you're coming up between Mormon Flats and Cedar Ridge, makes up for this flat part, because it's just brutal with endless step-ups. It can be very, very difficult. But nice to have this little respite where things are relatively flat for a half mile or so until we get to 3 Mile Point at Skeleton Point, and then we start diving down. All right, 3 miles in, we're just past Skeleton Point. If you come 3 switchbacks down past Skeleton Point, same kind of thing as what I was saying about going down below Aah Point. You see at this spot, 3 switchbacks down, again, some of the most spectacular views in the canyon. You're about 1,000 feet still above the Tonto platform, about 2,000 feet above the Colorado. You can see the river for the first time flowing down there. You can see all the way out to Plateau Point over here. And you can see the top of Devil's Corkscrew. You can see where the Tapeats Narrows start on Bright Angel Trail. You can see this green strip down here is Phantom Ranch in the Bright Angel campground area. And of course you can see the river. So a lot to see from this point at Skeleton Point or 3 switchbacks down. Highly recommend coming these extra switchbacks, because it is, before you stop, it's a great place. You can see there's some flat bench-like areas that you can sit and just enjoy the view, have lunch, check your water, check your pack, take a load off, and just take a break for a while before you tackle the red and white switchbacks, the most notorious part of South Kaibab, which are just around this corner right here. So 3 miles in now, only about 14 and a half to go or so. Amazing day. All right, just below Skeleton, 3.14 miles from the trailhead, you run into the red and white switchbacks. They get that name because they descend through the canyon's red wall layer. So you see the dark reddish dirt, and then suddenly you will be in a whitish layer of dirt, maybe 3/4 of the way down the switchbacks, and that's the temple layer and then the Muav layer. Okay, we are essentially at the halfway point. This sign right here, South Rim 3.5 miles, Phantom Ranch 3.8 miles. So this is a famous sign here down about halfway down the red and white switchbacks, and that lets us know where we are. It's the only sign that has mileage anywhere on South Kaibab, so you're kind of flying blind without it. But about halfway, it's an incredibly gorgeous day, just overcast completely. There's been a few sprinkles, but nothing serious. I'm kind of hoping for a big monsoon to roll through because you can see waterfalls everywhere, and it's just completely magical with the clouds in the canyon. And oh man, I kind of hope for it. I kind of don't, so I'll take what I can get because this is the middle of August, and just to be here is something very, very special. Okay, onward. And you can see here comes the very abrupt switch from red to white here on the red and whites. Four miles into this thing, just got my first look at the pit toilets and storm shelter about a half mile away at the Tipoff. So once we get to the Tipoff, that's kind of the last place. There's a shelter there, and there are pit toilets. That's 4.5 miles down the trail. Just up from Tipoff is the junction with the Tonto Trail, which you can take across to the Bright Angel Trail. It's another 4 miles or so all the way across Tonto to get to Bright Angel, but it cuts off the having to go all the way down to the river and then back up to Havasupai Gardens from there. So 4 miles in, feeling good. Again, the day is everything. Yesterday I wouldn't have been here. Tomorrow I won't be here, and the rest of the summer I probably won't be here because this is mid-August. To get a day like this is an anomaly, to say the very least. So, enjoying it. The Tipoff, 4.5 miles in. We are now about to descend into the canyon's inner gorge. We're standing on the Tonto platform. The Tonto junction, the Tonto Trail, is about 50 yards up the trail, and it just heads off to the west there and ends up connecting with Havasupai Gardens after about 4.5 meandering miles. That's a cool hike as well. I've got a lot of content on that in podcast form and also in videos. So if you're interested in the South Kaibab to Tonto to Bright Angel hike, about 13.5 miles total. Incredible day hike. Again, not one to do in the summer, but in the nicer times of the year. And if you don't want to go all the way to the river and make it a little shorter, it's a great hike to do. So a lot of content available on that. But now we head into the inner gorge, and we have about 2.1 miles to the Black Bridge and the Colorado River. So onward. Just over 5 miles completed so far as we continue crashing down toward the Colorado River and the Black Bridge. I just felt my knees for the first time. When I say that, I just felt a little discomfort in my knees, and that was right before I slipped and jammed my toe into one of these logs, water bars going across the trail. So it's been a rough few steps for me, but that reminded me that really need to talk about the downhill and how you really have to train for a Grand Canyon downhill, because there's nothing, in my opinion, that has the potential to wreck your hike like the downhill in the canyon does. And I say that because it's happened to me personally so many times. And it goes back to that unique nature of canyon hiking, how it's unlike traditional hiking, where you're usually hiking up to something, right? To a peak or whatever. You're usually not going downhill first, and especially so severely downhill. We're talking almost a vertical mile over these 6.5 miles just to get to the river. You've got to be trained for that, because if you are not, you might get sucked in and be going down too fast, not using your poles enough to brace yourself and take some of the weight and punishment off of your knees and legs and joints and feet and ankles. And next thing you know, you can get to the river. And I say this because I've had this happen to me. And I'll sit down at the river and I'll be like, wow, I really don't feel very good. And it's typically because my feet hurt and my knees hurt. And now you've gotten yourself into some trouble because, you know, you're going to make it out most likely, but it's going to be painful because you haven't even turned around to do the hard part, which is from Phantom Ranch, 9.9 miles, almost 10 miles with 4,400 vertical feet that you have to do after you've put that pounding on your legs going downhill. So you have to take the downhill incredibly seriously. I think more seriously than anything else in the canyon, to avoid that pitfall that I'm talking about. And how do you do that? Well, you listen to what Coach Arnie has to say on our website, Grand Canyon Central at hikingc.com, HIKINGC.com. You listen to what he has to say about training yourself for the downhill so that you're more ready for it. And then what I would add on to that is having poles is so important. It's so important. And I have found that being really intentional with my poles on the downhill, really jamming them into the dirt and really feeling it in my arms to take some of that pounding off of my legs, I found that's what helps me more than anything else. But you have to be intentional about it, because again, it's so easy to get sucked in. You're in one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. There's incredible beauty all around. You might forget the fundamentals, so to speak, that you have to really concentrate on in order to have a successful hike and not come out of here in any more pain than need be. You're always going to be sore after a big hike like this. I mean, who are you kidding? Those people who say that I wasn't sore at all the next day. Come on, your shoulders weren't sore. Nothing was. Come on. I mean, really? Maybe, but I don't find that to be true. But anyway, I digress. Train yourself for the downhill the best you can. Take it seriously. Research it. Listen to the experience of others and the advice of Coach Arnie and others who know what they're talking about, and you'll have a better experience. Don't let the downhill wreck your hike, because if you're not careful, it will. Six and a half miles, now crossing Black Bridge, the Kaibab suspension bridge. We're essentially at the bottom of the canyon, but I'm going to walk down to Boat Beach here and touch the Colorado. Highly recommend a stop at Boat Beach, which is just on the other side of Black Bridge, on the north side of Black Bridge. Easy to find. You'll see a sign that says water. Just go off to the left. Follow the social trails down. It gets you right to the edge of the Colorado. You can dip your feet in it. Great sandy beach, depending on the water level that day. But it's a place to get a great shot with you in the Black Bridge in the background. Beautiful. The river trips pull out there for lunch and to visit Phantom and to refill their water. They don't stay there overnight, so they're not there long, but they do stop there. And it's just a really cool place to stop. But beware if you get in that water and decide that you're going to get in and take a plunge to cool yourself off. That water stays around 50 degrees year round. It is so cold, even in the middle of summer. You know, it could be 110 degrees and you could be so hot, and you take a plunge in that river and it will take your breath away. It's like when you're a little kid and you're scared to jump in. That's the same kind of feeling when you're an adult and you're thinking about plunging into the Colorado. It's pretty safe right there at Boat Beach. It's an eddy. Gets about knee deep, but don't go out too far, obviously, because that water's really moving out there in the main channel. So you won't want to go out too far, but that little calm eddy is a great place to stop and cool off. At least dip your feet in there and get them ready for the ascent, because that means that you are officially at the bottom of the Grand Canyon when you have your feet in the Colorado. So I always love being able to say that no matter what, you know, tonight I'm gonna finish this hike. I'm gonna go have dinner in Flagstaff. I'm gonna drive home tonight and I'll end up in my bed in Phoenix. And no matter what, I'm gonna say, you know what? Earlier today, I had my feet in the Colorado River at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a nerd, but that's kind of a fun thing to say to yourself. It's very, very satisfying. And it shows you how much you can accomplish in a single day, right? So we're at the bottom of the canyon now, officially, and I'm gonna head into the Phantom area because I need to get some photos of some of the signs there. So that'll take some extra time, but that's okay. I'm not in any rush. The weather's perfect. Not trying to get out of here. Don't have to worry about the shade. The only thing we got to worry about is potential thunderstorms was an 80% chance all afternoon down here at the bottom, but it hasn't rained. I can tell there's a few sprinkles right now, but nothing serious, and doesn't look like there's anything that's imminent. But full cloud cover, and just makes for the most perfect imaginable summer hiking conditions in the Grand Canyon. Absolutely an anomaly when you don't have to worry about the heat, and you don't have to worry about people getting themselves in trouble and getting rescued because of the heat. So this is a great day to be in the canyon. And of course, I haven't seen a single person since that trail runner at Mormon Flats above Skeleton Point. So once again, it seems like every time that I do summer hikes, I do them at what I think is the smartest times, which is a day like today when it's perfect, but also if I'm going to do it during the summer when days are not perfect, when it's hot and it's a sunny day, let's say, and I come up here to do a rim to river, I'm starting in the afternoon. I'm starting not at 4 o'clock in the morning like everyone seems to want to do, or 3 in the morning, because then no matter what, you are going to have to deal with that heat and that sun on the way out. There's no escaping it. But if you start late in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, still hot, but the sun is on its way down. It's no longer overhead and beating you down. You're going downhill for the first half of the hike. So I like to time it so I get down here to the bottom at about golden hour, getting close to dusk. And then I know that I'm going to have shade and then darkness for the hardest part of the hike, which is of course the ascent. Yes, you have to give up seeing the views on the way out, but you saw the iconic views on the way down. And hiking in the summer, quite frankly, requires some sacrifice somewhere. And so the sacrifice that I make is to hike out at night, which can be a very cool experience in its own right. So those are the ways to hike the Grand Canyon in the summertime. If you're doing it in the middle of the day, you are asking for trouble. And I mean between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. you are asking for trouble if you are on your way out, because that sun is going to get you. So we're here at the Delta. There's a kiosk you can see right here, and you go across the bridge right there. There's restrooms over there and a place to refill your water. You go up the trail this way. That is North Kaibab. That takes you to Phantom Ranch Bright Angel Campground, and 14 miles from here, the North Rim. So I'm gonna go take some pictures in the Phantom area, and then we will head on out of here. All right, after a quick stop at Phantom Ranch, we're about to cross the Silver Bridge. 65/100ths of a mile to get to Silver Bridge from the Phantom Ranch Canteen. And we are 8.37 miles into this hike overall, with about 9.5 still to go. So Silver Bridge is a really cool experience to walk across this thing. The Trans-Canyon water line runs directly underneath it, and because the floor, I guess you'd say, of the Silver Bridge is a grate the entire way across, you can see all the way down to the river. You can see the pipeline, and you can see down to the rapids. They've run more, I don't know if it's conduit or wires or whatever it is. They've run a lot more underneath this bridge since the Trans-Canyon Waterline project started a couple of years ago. So it's not as good of a view straight down as it used to be, but it's still pretty cool being able to see down all the way to the river. Very cool part of the hike. Something I always look forward to is crossing Silver Bridge. Back on the south side again, just across Silver Bridge, 8.5 miles into the hike, and we got about probably just under 2 miles to River Resthouse and Pipe Creek Beach. And that whole stretch on the other side of Silver Bridge, on the south side of Silver Bridge, heading to River Resthouse and Pipe Creek Beach, is technically called the River Trail. It's not the Bright Angel Trail. The Bright Angel Trail officially starts at Pipe Creek Beach, and from there it's 7.7 miles to the room. So we are on the River Trail. I think most people just assume this is Bright Angel Trail because we say for rim to river, South Kaibab to Phantom to Bright Angel. Never mention the River Trail. Same with rim to rim. You never hear people say, I took North Kaibab to the River Trail to Bright Angel. They always just say North Kaibab to Bright Angel, or vice versa. So the River Trail doesn't get the respect it deserves, because it is an engineering marvel cut right into the cliffs above the Colorado River for a lot of its duration. Very important trail because it ultimately did connect the Phantom Ranch area with the Bright Angel Trail. So it's an important artery through the inner canyon, the river trail is. I should mention, you will often hear people complain about the river trail, or they'll call it Bright Angel, because they hate the sand on the river trail here. There are a few sandy sections, and they're like, oh, that ruins the hike and it makes it so much harder. And I will never understand it, because yeah, there are some sandy sections, but if you just stay to the side, you don't even really notice it, or it's easier to get around because it's firmer and not as dense and fluffy as it is in the middle of the trail. So just stay off to the side and you will be able to walk through the sandy sections with a smile on your face. Not a big deal. I don't get it. 9.76 miles in, just getting to the River Resthouse, which is a shade structure, and there are pit toilets here as well. The cool thing though is to come down to Pipe Creek Beach, which is another sandy beach right here at Pipe Creek Rapid here on the Colorado, just downriver from Phantom Ranch. This is a place to come down, and again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and find a nice little spot on a rock and have something to eat, and then time to put the head down and get serious, because it's 7.7 miles to the south rim from here, and it's obviously all uphill, 4,400 or so vertical feet to get to the Bright Angel trailhead. So good chance to stop here at Pipe Creek Beach and fuel up, reassess, and then ultimately re-inspire yourself and then get to work. So 7.7 miles still to go. 10 miles in, we have turned, I want to say inland, but we turned southward away from the river. We will not see it again on this hike, and we are now going to meander back here alongside Pipe Creek for a mile or so until we get to the first big ascent, which is the infamous Devil's Corkscrew. There are a few creek crossings depending on time of the year, depending on if the water's flowing or not. There have been some times when these crossings have been deep enough that I couldn't avoid it and I had to walk through it in shin deep water. Usually there are rocks and boulders that have been placed out there so you can pick your way across. It's not that deep, even if you did slip. But there's a few of them to navigate depending on how much rain there's been and all that good stuff. So super fun, super fun. That's why it might be a good idea to bring a change of socks, because there is a good chance that you are going to get your feet wet on Bright Angel between here and Havasupai Gardens, where you have those crossings. And then there's one section that, depending on how wet it's been, you're essentially walking for 100 yards or so basically through the creek, because the creek is the trail. So here's another one of those little crossings, but you can see there's nothing to it. There's just a couple of options for dry rocks you can step on and pick your way across. I find this section to be very similar to the box on North Kaibab, just after Phantom Ranch. If you've hiked Rim to Rim, you know what the box is. It's where the canyon walls close in, and it's just a narrow kind of canyon for about 4 miles. And you have the creek, Bright Angel Creek in that case, running alongside you the entire time. This one, you have Pipe Creek running in varying degrees of distance away, but it has that same kind of feel where everything's just kind of closed in until you get to Devil's Corkscrew and start ascending. 11 miles. Just beginning the ascent of Devil's Corkscrew. Now is when you'll start to hear my voice change and the breathing get heavier. And pretty soon you'll see my AirPods in my ears. I kind of know how this goes. what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is this is where it gets tough. As soon as you get to Devil's Corkscrew, in the 11 miles that you've been hiking, this is the first time that you're really doing serious elevation. It only lasts less than 3/4 of a mile, and then it becomes more gentle again into Havasupai Gardens. But, you know, it has its name for a reason. I think it's a little bit overrated. I don't think it's one of the more difficult stretches of the trail, if all things are equal. What happens with Devil's Corkscrew, though, is that people do it in the inopportune times. Now, going up this thing in the middle of the day in August usually is almost a death wish. This is one of the deadliest stretches of trail in the Grand Canyon, because people will, you know, having suddenly turning uphill and having to exert for the first time, and doing that under a blazing sun and heat. It's a very dangerous combination. So if this is the middle of a summer day, if this is the middle of a warm day and there's sun overhead, just like I said back on the red and whites on South Kaibab, you're not going to find me on this trail, especially on this stretch of trail. Now, if you use our Grand Canyon shade tracker, you can see, no matter what day it is, what the shade situation is like when this section of trail shades in. And at a minimum, that would be my goal if I was planning to hike this. That it's like, okay, I want to hit Devil's Corkscrew because I see that it's fully shaded by 4:15 p.m. So that's my goal. Anything 4:15 p.m. and later, but not before. So that's how I would plan my hike, because I will not mess with the sun and the heat on top of it. So the shade tracker works. That's it. gcshadetracker.com. It's one of the many, many tools that we offer through hiking to help you hopefully have your best and safest possible Grand Canyon experience. Check all the tools out at hikingc.com. That's HIKINGC.com. There are some unbelievable, game-changing tools so that you can plan your best experience. Highly recommend. So we'll check back in when we get to the top of this sucker. Again, less than 3/4 of a mile to the top of it. And then I'll show you what we just came up, because you can get a really good view looking back at what Devil's Corkscrew is all about. All right, we survived. We made it up Devil's Corkscrew. Just under 3/4 of a mile from the base of it to the top. You have to remember, when you're coming up it, you're going to be tired and ready to be at the top of it. Just remember to look off to your right so that you can look back and see kind of the iconic photo op of where you just were, the entirety of Devil's Corkscrew. It's a very cool photo. So highly suggest that when you get to the top, you start looking off to the right, and you'll see it start to emerge, and then you can take a break and take your picture. So now the next chunk of Bright Angel, and that is to get up to Havasupai Gardens, which is probably maybe 1.5 miles from here. This is a really cool part of the trail, because right up here, that's Plateau Point. That's the tip of the Tonto platform, and Havasupai Gardens sits up on the Tonto platform as well. So you have to go through the Tapeats sandstone, which is the layers underneath the Tonto platform, right below the Tonto platform. It's like a big layer cake almost. And we'll get up here to the Tapeats Narrows before too long, which is a very cool section of the trail. We walk kind of just in this narrow canyon with that Tapeats sandstone with its layers on both sides. But before then, we've got some work to do when it comes to creek crossings. Because I know we've been having storms the last couple of weeks, so I expect there to be quite a bit of water in, I guess, Garden Creek as we make our way towards Havasupai Gardens. So we'll see. But making progress. We are 11.89 miles in, and probably close to 6 miles to go, maybe a little bit more than that. Should be at about 17 and a half when all's said and done today, I think. So, onward. So not bad at all. This is way better than I expected. I expected to be probably getting my feet wet walking through the creek, but that's not happening today. So who knows? I don't know how to predict the water flow through here. It seems so random. But yeah, that was nothing. No change of socks necessary today. Sometimes you are walking through that little section right there and you are just walking through the creek and it's hard to keep your feet dry. Today, no. So a couple more creek crossings and we'll just keep right on trucking. 12.5 miles and we are in the Tapeats Narrows, one of the coolest sections of the Bright Angel Trail. You know, I feel like I owe Bright Angel an apology because I spent about 3 years on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude show being kind of a South Kaibab snob. You know, I didn't want to hear it about Bright Angel because to me, South Kaibab is what it's all about in terms of just the views. Oh, this is tricky right here. In terms of just the views and just the beauty of it. And Bright Angel can't match that in terms of those epic, iconic Grand Canyon views. But what Bright Angel does is it gives you so much diversity. You can see all around me the greenery here on Bright Angel, and it's been like that from the river for the most part, because there's just running water everywhere. And it's, even though you don't have the expansive views, you know, you're going through the Tapeats sandstone here, very unique feature. Devil's Corkscrew, very unique feature. The river trail, running alongside the river the whole way, that's cool. Even coming up from the river to Devil's Corkscrew through what is kind of like the box on North Kaibab, except you get to do it on Bright Angel. So it's interesting kind of the whole way. And now we're going to work our way into Havasupai Gardens here after we get out of the Tapeats Narrows. And then we'll be 4.5 steep miles from the top. And then Upper Bright Angel has its uniqueness as well. You know, there's no place else that I've seen where, for example, the Coconino sandstone is so imposing and just towering over you. That's amazing. So, every trail has its advantages and disadvantages, but I feel like I kind of owe a little mea culpa to Bright Angel because I've really come to love and respect it the more I've done it, and the more, honestly, that I do it in daylight, because oftentimes I'm going up Bright Angel in the dark during the summer, and also taking my time a little more and not being in such a hurry and a race against the stopwatch. If you stop and look around, it's like, wow, this is actually amazing. And it's like that going down Bright Angel too. That's the first time I really noticed it. It was a few hikes ago when I went down Bright Angel. I was like, wow. And I made it a point to take my time and look around. And you learn to appreciate and respect and want to know more about everything you're seeing. So, as much as I will give South Kaibab its flowers, because I do love it and there's no views like it anywhere that I've been on any trail in the canyon, Bright Angel is a winner in its own right. And I love them both. So, there you go. For what it's worth. All right, next stop, Havasupai Gardens. Coming right up. 13.1 miles. Havasupai Gardens. Water. Pit toilets. And 4.5 miles to go to the south rim. All right, stopping here at Havasupai Gardens. You got to see this. Still plenty of solid ice in there. Solid. That's because of that insulated hydration compartment that we designed and put in our rim to rim packs, which is what I use, and our Canyon Elite, which is essentially the rim to rim pack with a hip belt. So this is probably my favorite feature that we did. I've never seen anyone else do that. But the insulated compartment, look, almost 6 hours after I started, 13.2 miles in August, and I've still got solid ice in there. These packs are amazing. Got all that front storage designed in the canyon. I designed the pack that I wanted. So if you're interested in a pack, I hope you will check it out at hikingc.com, HIKINGC.com. This is the rim to rim pack. Doesn't have a hip belt on it, but I don't feel like I need one. The Canyon Elite does have a hip belt. A lot of people want that feature for the added support, and it does help. But these packs, they have the same features, same front pocket system, and same insulated hydration compartment, which is a absolute game changer. Check it out. All right, almost 14 miles in now. Still making our way out of the Havasupai Gardens area. So when you come out of Havasupai Gardens, you kind of just meander and gradually ascend for a mile or so until it starts to go up till Jacob's Ladder, which is a set of switchbacks through the red wall. And that's when things get serious and things get steep, and you have a pretty consistent incline for the rest of the way after that. But you're about 3.5 miles from the top at that point when you start Jacob's Ladder. So one of the cool things about Bright Angel and also South Kaibab is a lot of the landmarks, points of interest, rest stops are exactly 1.5 miles apart from each other. So Havasupai Gardens is 4.5 miles from the south rim, but you can break it up into 1.5 mile chunks, because you come out of Havasupai Gardens, you have 1.5 miles exactly to the 3-mile rest house, water, pit, toilet, shade structure. From the 3-mile rest house, you have 1.5 miles to the 1.5 mile rest house, shade structure, pit, toilets, water, seasonal water, I should say, for both of those. And then from 1.5 mile rest house, yeah, you guessed it, 1.5 miles to the south rim and out of there. South Kaibab has that too. It just doesn't have the water. It's 1.5 miles to Cedar Ridge from the trailhead, 1.5 miles to Skeleton Point from Cedar Ridge, and 1.5 miles from Skeleton Point to Tipoff, shade structure, toilets. So if you break this up into 1.5 mile chunks, it makes it more manageable, I feel like, on the ascent, because you have little victories along the way, as opposed to just the endless slog. And if you're unfamiliar with the canyon, not knowing when it's ever going to end. So if you break this up into these 1.5 mile chunks, it's much more manageable. So keep that in mind if you're ever on the South Rim corridor trails, Bright Angel or South Kaibab. And our next stop will be the 3-mile rest house, which will come when we get to the top of Jacob's Ladder, the first big ascent on Bright Angel, which is coming up here in just a little bit. We're in the middle of Jacob's Ladder. We are 14.6 miles in and making our way up this tough set of switchbacks that takes you right into and through the red wall. You can see how imposing the red wall is. It's hard to see on camera, but trust me, that is one imposing sheet of rock. And then when we get up a little higher, the Coconino sandstone is imposing like that as well. Part of the reason Bright Angel is so cool is these two big formations. Awesome. All right, 14.91 miles, just passing 3-mile rest house. There is water there seasonally, meaning not in the winter time, but every other time of the year, unless there's a pipeline break. And they do have pit toilets and a shade structure. So next stop will be the 1.5 mile rest house, and then we're out of here after another 1.5 miles after that. So getting there, this last 3 miles is not easy, A lot of elevation still to gain, about 2,000 feet. So it's best to not look up. Should take me about hour and 15 to an hour and 20 to get out of here from here. So it's probably going to be just after dark. All those side trips to Boat Beach and to Phantom and to Pipe Creek, I think cost me just enough time that I'm not going to get out of here in daylight, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. It's still been a great day, and the weather has broken. No more storm clouds. Saw the sun for a little bit, but not on me. Heat has not been a factor today, nor has the sun at all. So all in all, I was hoping for some more monsoon activity, because this place, when it pours and you get the waterfalls off these sheer cliffs, it is just magical. So I was kind of hoping for that again, but not to be. The consolation prize is a perfect hiking day in the middle of August. Like I said, you get one of these about every year or two. So good to take advantage when it happens. Next stop, 1.5 miles. Just over 16 miles behind us. Now's the time when I'm starting to hunt the 1.5 mile rest house. And from there, a lot of adrenaline to get me on out of here. You can see Havasupai Gardens down there. That green strip down there. And beyond that, that road is Plateau Point at the end of it. So, 16 miles in, just over 1.5 miles to go. Still feeling pretty good. Great day. So just so you know, the first thing you come to when you get to 1.5 mile rest house is the toilets are separated. They're behind me. They're a little bit, probably 150 yards downhill from the actual 1.5 mile rest house. And the water is at the actual 1.5 mile rest house. There's a spigot, double spigot right here on the trail off to the side, and you cannot miss it. So we made it to the 1.5 mile rest house. Don't need water, don't need anything except to get on out of here. And again, I think we get out just after dark. Onward. So this is exactly what I was talking about when I was talking about the Coconino sandstone layer, how imposing it is on Bright Angel. That's a pretty good indication right there. And again, video doesn't do it justice. That's probably, it's got to be 300 or 400 feet of just a sheer cliff of sandstone. And as awesome as it is, I guess it's intimidating, because you know that no matter what, you got to get to the top of that. And then you got more to go after that. So the next thing that we're looking for here on Bright Angel, as we work our way out from the 1.5 mile rest house, the next thing we look for, the next landmark, the next progress point, is the lower tunnel. There's a little tunnel cut right into the Coconino, and when you are there, you know that you are less than a mile. It's about 9/10 of a mile from the lower tunnel to the trailhead. So you could smell the barn from there, getting closer and closer. And at this point in the hike, I'm always ready to be done. As beautiful as it is, I don't think there's ever been a time where I finish and go, well, let's go do that again. No. This is when you start to think about dinner, what you're going to eat if you're staying here on the rim. Or for me, I'm driving home to Phoenix tonight, about 3.5 hours. So I'll stop in Flagstaff, which is about 1.5 hours away, and have something there. And I just look forward to that, because I've done something hard, so I give myself a little bit of a break, more than I usually would. And that typically means a milkshake from somewhere, because you got to celebrate your victories in whatever ways works for you. So remember that. Reward yourself. Hiking the canyon is hard, man. It's serious business. I think it was Buffy Park, my good friend, who said nobody ever finishes and goes, boy, that was easy. And that is true. No matter what, when you do these difficult hikes, especially rim to rims, rim to rivers, R3s, they are hard and they're physical accomplishments. So important to celebrate them. So go on, finish a big hike, and go have that milkshake or whatever the reward is for you. But that's what I'm thinking about now. Let's go. All right, just past Lower Tunnel. We are less than a mile from completion. We are at 17.1 overall, so we're gonna come in somewhere barely below or barely above 18. So, whew. Crazy thing is that from 1.5 miles to the top, especially this last mile, it's pretty steep. I think elevation profile wise, it's the steepest part of Bright Angel. And you can probably hear that in my labored breathing, the way I'm talking. So, a little bit more to get through the Coconino layer. And then there's 2 more smaller layers, Kaibab and Toroweep, to get through. And then we'll be at the rim. And very, very happy and very, very satisfied. I mean, just looking up, it's progress, but man, I always say don't look up. It's dangerous to look up because all the way till the end, it's like, wow, that's still a long way to go. That's still a lot of elevation to gain. So maybe it's best to just keep your head down or look back down into the canyon. I don't know. Anyway, almost there. Now we're through the upper tunnel, which means we are really almost there. Just like 1/10 of a mile now. So lower tunnel, 9/10 of a mile. Upper tunnel, almost to the end. Just like that, we're done. 17.97 miles, 4,800 vertical feet on the way down South Kaibab, and 4,400 on the way back up Bright Angel. So a great day. It's actually a little bit cool up here at the Bright Angel trailhead, which I never thought I would say in the middle of August, but here we are. This is like I keep saying, like a once every 2 years kind of a day in the canyon. So that's what rim to river looks like here at the canyon. South Kaibab, Phantom Ranch, Bright Angel, 17.97 miles, a lot of elevation, great day in the canyon. Go get yours.